Happy Sunday and welcome to another Sunday morning View Queue where I answer all the best viewer questions about my full-time RV life. And today we had a rash of great questions, and so we've got a bunch coming up, including fire safety, jobs for writers, miles per gallon, safety, and pot rules. I mean, pot rules. Good morning, everybody. It's Robin, and welcome to another Sunday morning View Queue. First of all, I want to say that my thoughts are going out to all the people that are in the path of the hurricane this weekend. If you're one of those people, please do let us know how you're doing in the comments below. Now, today, you guys gave me a rash of great questions, and a lot of them, I went down some rabbit holes and did research for you guys. They were so great, and I got some great answers for you on a bunch of things, so let me get right into the questions. I don't know if you guys saw the video I did earlier this week on Cruise Don't Lose, how to get the best value out of your RV, and where you find the data for that so you make sure you're finding a rig that holds its value and stuff. But I wore this shirt, and I must have gotten 100 comments asking me where I got this shirt. So I wanted to let you guys know I got it on Amazon like I do everything else. I think it was $18. It comes in a bunch of colors. It's light. I like it. So just know that you can see all my gear recommendations if you go down to the Amazon link below, and then it will be in as seen recently on YouTube, and you can find it right there. Okay, the next person whose name I cut off, I apologize, in my notes, said, Robin, here's a question for you. While both your Tiffin and leisure travel van rigs are built on the Sprinter cutaway chassis, have you noticed a difference in the gas mileage between the two? What mileage do you get? Okay, I have a Sprinter chassis, like she said, and the leisure travel van was 25 feet long. My Tiffin is 25.5 feet. It's a little bit taller. On both of them, I get around 15.6 miles to the gallon. I am diesel, but you know, I drive pretty slow, and I try not to carry a lot of weight, so I'm sure that will differ from other people. But that's what you can expect if you get that kind of a chassis with that kind of a rig. Jeff Stone said, I noticed weather doesn't seem to hinder your travel. I bet Jeff saw the bomb cyclone that I rode through. Dumb. He said, however, where would you say is the best winter area other than Florida? I'm done with the overcrowdedness. Thanks. Well, I know a lot of people that go to Arizona, California, New Mexico, and Texas. You know, a lot of people spend the winters down there because the climate is so great. And actually, because I just answered that, I'm going to jump ahead to another question about taxes for snowbirds and answer another question as well. Okay, Warren Johnson says, it is my understanding that you cannot stay in a state longer than 6 months. If you do, that state has the right to claim you as a citizen. This seems particularly important when wanting to stay in one place during the winter. I know that California, New York, and Connecticut really clamped down on you. I'm less sure about other states. Yet I think to stay on the safe side, you should not extend your visit beyond 6 months. Comments. Okay, now this is a tricky one. I assume that Warren means that they can claim you for tax purposes, for state income tax. So if you guys go back in my playlist on the how-to videos, I did do a whole video on resident state, and there's a section on this in my book as well. Yes, you do have to be a little bit careful. There is something in the tax code, and I am not a CPA, you guys. I'm not a financial planner. Know that right here. This is all stuff you can look up on the Google machine for yourself. But there is something for taxes called a nexus, and it can cause a tax liability, mostly for businesses, if there's income in that state, but some states also do it if you own a residence. Like I've said in my videos before, you probably, as the best practice, want to have one resident state or one domicile state for your taxes. And if you split stuff around, you know, like you have part of your stuff in one state and part of your stuff in another, like, you know, you pay state taxes in one state, but you're registered to vote and have your driver's license in another, that might be a little bit tricky because both states might want tax revenue from you. If you put everything into one state, you're less likely to have a problem. But for us, that's tricky because we don't have one constant state that we stay in, right? So I did do a little bit more digging for this question, and I wanted to tell you that if a state wants to come after you for taxes because you're spending time in that state or you have income in that state, they're going to look at your intention. It all relies on intention according to the tax code. So if that's really subjective, right, the tax guy will look at where your home is, So if you own a home and you rent it out, for example, that might come into play. If you have a business, what state that is in, your time spent in comparison to other states. Now, that's the important one for us. So let's say you spend 9 months of the year in one state, but you want to pay tax in another state, like a state that doesn't have state income tax, you might get called out on that. And they'll look at your credit card receipts and all kinds of stuff to determine what time you're spending in a state. Just know that. And also they have something called the teddy bear rule, which basically means, the things that you're closest to, what state is that in, like family, that kind of thing. So here's the thing. If you're going to spend 6 months in a state and you spend exactly 6 months in another state, then you can just pay income tax maybe, but, ask your tax consultant for one state. But the important thing is that you only have income coming in that state. So whatever your state is that you're paying state income tax in, or you choose a state that doesn't have state income tax, just make sure that your stuff is there. That's the best practice, I think. Have your driver's license there, your registration, register to vote. You can pay taxes in 2 different states. If you are a resident of one state, my understanding is you have to pay tax there. And if you have income from another state, let's say business income or maybe rental income, something like that might affect us, then you might also have to pay tax in that state. Again, look up the rules for yourself. This is just my understanding. And for those Canadian snowbirds, I know a bunch of those. You might too, so let them know about this. There is a special consideration that people from other countries that come to the United States and spend time need to think about. Most people think that if you spend 182 days in the United States as a snowbird, that's fine. You go back to Canada, you don't have to pay tax in the United States. But that's not necessarily true. The U.S. Income Tax Code says that an individual is subject to U.S. tax on their worldwide income if they meet what is known as the substantial presence test. The substantial presence test is a formula that calculates the amount of days an individual spent in the United States over 3 years. So they're going to take an average, I think is what they do. But please, Canadians, look it up for yourself. When I was reading this, it looked like you could have tax liability in Canada and the United States if you're here for more than 6 months. So just wanted to let you guys know that. Look, there are services like Escapees, Good Sam, America's Mailbox that will help you create a resident address, and you can register there and do all your taxes and have your mail sent and get your jury duty and all that stuff if you don't have a regular resident state. So you might look into that, and then just look at the rules in each individual state, or consult a CPA. Okay, moving on. This was a good one too. Monica Morgan said, "Hey you, thanks for all you do." Thanks for watching, Monica. My question is, do you know if there are laws or rules and regulations about selling handmade or other items at a campground? Do you need a permit or a business license, sales tax? I'm sure it's different from place to place. Okay. I did a ton of research on this one. I could not find a consistent answer. It absolutely changes by state. In some states, if you just want to sell any goods at a craft fair or anywhere, you do need to get a business license, and some states require that you purchase a bond, which is a type of insurance. For most public land, like BLM and federal land, it varies based on the jurisdiction of that land or who's running that land and what the rules are there. I did find on some BLM land you can get a permit, but you have to pay for that. It can be tricky. You have to be approved, and then you have to submit paperwork to them afterwards about what you sold. So I don't know. It seems like a lot of trouble to just be selling stuff here and there, but I guess it's up to you. If there is a certain state that you want to do business in, I would look up the rules for that state, but it's a really good question because I know people do this all the time. What is it about taxes today? Let's move on to something more fun. Okay, Terry Peters says, how often are you camping solo versus time with friends? And do you camp with them or just near them? She said, I do about 70% solo. Somebody else asked me about finding people on the road to hang out with, and so I'm going to find that question too really quick. Lisa says, hi, Robin. Please talk about RV meetups and groups where I can learn about the nomad life. Okay, I'm putting these two together because, meeting friends on the road is important. I mean, we're social people, and some people like more of that than others. I know that I can be by myself for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, but then I do need to go into town and get a people fix, and sometimes I can just do that when I go to, the gas station or something. But I have friends who prefer to travel with other people, and I have made friends on the road, and a lot of us have, and you will too if you go on the road, if you look for it. I know people that have met friends at meetups, and now they travel with them full time. They have for a long time, and you know, they have their little tribe. For me, I probably camp by myself, like this gal, 70 or 80% of the time. But it is nice to go out and meet friends, and you know, every morning we get up and have coffee by the campfire, and that's really great. If you're going out on the road and you need to meet people, like the second question, I recommend, especially for her because she's a woman, RVing Women is a great organization. There's also Sisters on the Fly, and Escapees, the service that can also help you with the mailing address and a bunch of other stuff, has a group that's like younger, more active people that they do. Bob Wells from Cheap RV Living also has caravans, and if you go on Facebook and just search for RV groups, you're going to find a ton of them. Lots of different people have meetups, and I think I'm going to have one in January, so stay tuned for that. Maybe we can all get together then. Okay, next question. Angela Gonzalez says, "Hi, Robin. First, let me say I so enjoy your videos, especially the Trekker one you did." And she goes on, "Thank you for saying that. Anywho, my question is, how long does food and water last you? How often do you have to buy groceries?" This is so funny because, you know, when I first started, and other people that I know, when they first started, you know, we shop like the apocalypse is coming. And it's a good idea to have enough food that will last you in case you get stuck or something happens. But I was way over purchasing like canned goods. You know, they were heavy. I wasn't using them. So now I try and be a little bit better about it. I've really tried to create a method, you know, where I buy a lot of fresh produce. I'm working on ways to store it better. I'll tell you guys more about that in the future. But I eat the fresh stuff first and then work my way to like the non-perishable stuff, you know, like rice, beans, you know, canned goods, that kind of stuff. So I can go a good 2 weeks longer if I needed to with just the food that I store in my tiny little kitchen in my tiny little Class C. But for water, I have to say that having a Berkey filter really helps. I have the Berkey Mini, and here's a picture of it. I'll put a link for this on my gear page so you guys can see it. I have a 40-gallon water tank, and on my new rig, that was a bigger water tank for me, so now I filter my fresh water and drink it, so I'm not having to buy water and lug it into my rig and only rely on that. So that's made a big difference on how long I can boondock. Okay, on to a more serious topic that I thought was a really, really important one that is actually going to make me change my behavior. Follow the Double Yellow Line said, "Have you researched RV fire extinguishers? Fire is probably the scariest subject in any living situation, but the risk exists. Having had to replace so many parts, pieces, and systems in my brand new rig, I am now looking at the stock fire extinguisher with suspicion as to its capabilities." Okay. By the way, I want to let you know that I'm actually adding the information on this to the third quarter updates in my book, which you know is a living book, because I thought this was really important and something I had not addressed before. And so, first of all, I want to let you know what I found from NPS.gov. Fire is one of the leading causes of RV loss in the U.S. The National Fire Protection Association estimates that 20,000 RVs catch on fire every year. I had no idea. And I'm going to put a link to this article that I found from them down below. I suggest everybody look at it. They had about 30 tips on how to protect yourself in your rig. I'm going to give you my top 10 now, but before I do, I want to let everybody know that I would get a different fire extinguisher. Actually, I'm going to now. I have the one that came with my rig also. But, you know, those things sit there for months and months and months, and if you don't use your fire extinguisher, you never know, right? So the little baby fire extinguishers that you can get at, like, Walmart are 20 bucks. So I'm going to get a few more based on these tips, and, you know, it's worth it just to be safe. So let me tell you my favorite other tips that I'm going to start using myself. Make a pre-trip checklist and inspect your RV every time you hit the road. I got from their tips that a lot of the fires come from blown tires or engine problems or something scraping on the ground that causes a spark, and I know that's why they say that. They said, have 3 fire extinguishers for your RV, one in the kitchen, one in the bedroom, and one in an outside unlocked compartment or in your tow vehicle, and I don't do that, but I'm going to now. Test your smoke detectors, have at least 2 escape routes, make sure everyone that travels with you can open up the hatches, check your carbon monoxide and propane detectors. This was an interesting one, you guys. I don't carry charcoal in my rig, but if you do, spontaneous combustion can occur in damp charcoal, so don't carry it with you. And ensure that the power cord for connecting to your campground's electricity is in good condition. Try not to use extension cords in your rig, which I do, but if you do, use the super heavy grade ones like you use outside. And this one I don't do right now, but I'm going to thanks to this question. Shut off the propane at the tank and turn off all propane-powered appliances while driving. If you have an accident or tire blowout while the propane is on, injury and damage to your vehicle can be significantly worse. Even if you elect to travel with the refrigerator on propane, still turn off the propane because things will stay cold for 8 hours with the doors shut. And also be cautious where you pull over and park. A hot exhaust pipe or catalytic converter can ignite the grass beneath you and catch your RV on fire. So those were all good ones, and I'm glad we talked about it because, you know, it's a serious issue, especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere. To that end, I'm also going to tell you guys that I keep a safety beacon with me all the time. I think that's important if you don't have a good cell signal. Here's a picture of the one I have here. Again, it's in my gear page, and pretty soon I'll be doing a video all about all my safety gear. But the deal with this thing is if you don't have a cell signal and you're in a life and death situation, you hit the button and help comes to you. So, you know, if you're having a medical emergency or there's a fire, you can hit that button. And it's good for everybody to have, and just be careful about fire because, you know, we're out in rural areas where the response time is going to be a lot slower. So it's important that we have the stuff we need. And I appreciate that question. Okay, this is a great one. Tiny T says, is it legal to partake of cannabis in BLM areas of pot legal states? I'm asking for a friend, LOL. Well, I have to say, Brad Hansen, if you guys have not looked at the comments after the view queue, go in a couple days after the view queue and look at all the great conversations that happened there and the responses. They're great. So Brad Hansen responded to this guy, and he said, nope on the dope. BLM land is federal property, and the U.S. federal law still classifies pot as a Schedule I narcotic. That was absolutely correct, and I love the rest of his answer, so go check it out. But I wanted to tell you that I did double check, and although 18 states have legalized the medical use of marijuana or the recreational use, federal law doesn't recognize it. So let's say you're in Colorado, where pot's legal, and you legally purchase it and you're allowed to smoke it, but you're on federal land, like a park or BLM land, it's still illegal. So, you know, just be careful. And be careful, you know, if you're a smoker transporting that stuff over state lines, you can go to weedmaps.org to see what the laws are in every single state. So just be careful out there. You know, nobody wants to get arrested, especially in a state where they don't have any friends or family to come bail them out. Am I right? You guys, I wish I had time to get to all the other questions that are on here, but, you know, these view queues can get really long. So I'm going to finish it with this one. I thought this was funny. Rosella Davis said, have you ever encountered a wild animal while camping on BLM land? Do spiders count? Okay, well, seriously, she probably saw the spider spaceships and satellites video I think I did, where I had a hobo spider inside my rig, and I was putting dishes away, and it launched itself at me, and it looked like a bumblebee. And it was giant, and I put a mason jar on top of it, and I called my friends, and I said, you guys have got to come see what this thing is that I have in this mason jar. And we took the top off of it, and then 2 spiders launched itself, and we all screamed, and we realized that the spider was carrying a giant fly. It was having dinner underneath my drying plate that was on the counter, and it was just a beast, but it really was aggressive, and it was like lunging at us, and I tried to take it outside and get it to shoo, and every time I dumped it out of the mason jar, it would run at me. And later we found out that it's like one of the 3 deadliest spiders in the world, and that they only come inside in September when it's mating season, and it was September. And then they said, don't put your bed up against the wall because they like to climb up beds, and I had a Murphy bed then. But I did want to tell you, actually, I have not had any run-ins with snakes or mountain lions or bears or, you know, things that people are afraid of. I've seen a lot of donkeys, and actually one time I was in Moab, and you guys know that I like to go outside at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and just sit in the dark and look up at the stars. It is a liberating experience if you've never done that. So one time I was just sitting in this camp chair, and I was in the chair right outside the door, and something brushed by my leg, and I thought, oh God, the big boy got out. So I quick, you know, jump up and open up the door to my RV, and my cat, the big boy, like was on the bed, and he was like yawning, like, you know, what's up? What's the commotion about? And I went, oh my God, and I turned around with my flashlight, and there was a raccoon's eyes right there in the bush next to me. And he was as scared as I was. He obviously didn't know I was there, and he just grazed my leg. So that was about the closest call I've ever had. You guys, thanks again for all the great questions. If you have a question for me, please do put it down in the comments below, and I'll choose from the comments below for next time's View Q, which is going to be in 2 weeks. And if you don't see your answer here, please ask me again. It's possible I didn't see it, or it might have been answered before, so check out my View Q playlist. If you guys like the video, please do give it a thumbs up. It helps other people discover the video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I hope to see you all out on the road someday soon. Until then, everybody have happy travels and be free.